So I think, like lots of venues, we were really reactive, just waiting for sort of emails to drop into our inbox to respond to, which is often the way with weddings, I think. We would then respond to those emails with either a phone call or another email, and hopefully get through to the point where they would be coming in for a show round. But with our location being in North Norfolk, I think that conversion from initial inquiry through to show round is really tricky for us, because we are really out in the sticks. It's not somewhere that you just sort of stumble across. So it was, as I said, quite reactive, some web listings, but primarily the strong inquiries would be through our website. We were at that point really trying to grow the business. So we were doing sort of 20, 25 weddings a year, and we really wanted to get that up to 60. And the only way that we were going to do that is by increasing the number of inquiries that we needed. So, and it was an enormous increase actually that we needed to get it up by. So our biggest drive for starting to work with DHM was to try and really push that inquiry, but also we have a small team here and limited resources. So it was how we could make the customer, the journey for the customer really smooth and seamless and feel very personal, without it being suddenly an enormous amount of extra work and us needing to take on a bigger team. Well, I think for us, firstly, you came recommended from somebody we work with a lot who's very experienced in the wedding industry. And I think it's great that DHM has such a wide portfolio of different venues and clients and hotels that you work with. So it's not, you understand that it's not one size fits all. It's very much got to be determined by the venue and the location that they're in and the individual challenges that venue faces. So for me, that was a really big thing. We're quite lucky that you're quite local to us, which is always nice to support other Norfolk-based businesses at that time. And I think your team were just young and creative and fun and slipped right into kind of working with our team. So it just worked really nicely and was really seamless. No, I don't think so. I think not necessarily for me, but for some other members of our team who are perhaps more not quite as techy, there was a bit of helping them understand how that new customer journey would work and why actually we needed that system, because we don't have a CRM system and things to back up what we have here. So, you know, it wasn't a case of building what we already had. We couldn't physically do that in-house. So there was a little bit of sort of educating around that. But I think, you know, certainly when we met you, Adam, and then some of the rest of the team, it was clear straight away that you guys knew what you were talking about, and that there was a real gap that we had with our marketing journey. I think the whole personalisation for the customer, so the individual handwritten notes that go out, the fact that every email is tailored to the individuals, even though it's not, but actually, you know, it feels very personal for them all the way through. And I love the video aspect of what you do as well. I mean, we're told all the time, aren't we, that, you know, video is king. So, you know, having a really professional team come in and help us create those videos and actually instantly answer 10 questions that a couple might have, not only makes us look really professional and slick, but also saves an enormous amount of time in terms of going back and forth with the couple. So that was probably one of the really key things for me. I also love the kind of refresh that you guys do based on the seasons that we're in and all that sort of thing, so that we can, you know, our content always feels quite fresh, which is great. For me, if I don't know how to approach something, you know, certainly in the last year, we've had a lot of challenges that none of us have ever come up against before, and things have been thrown up at us. And even if I don't know the answer or your team don't know the answer, I can openly sort of go to them and say, this is our problem. And you guys will say, okay, leave it with us, we'll think on it, and then come back with a really creative solution. So, you know, you're not sort of promising something there and then that you can't do, but you take it away and you really think about what the right solution is going to be for us as Holkham. And the problem that we've got. And, you know, we've had to make some adjustments to our business, and you guys have been great in supporting us with that. Well, I think certainly, as I've sort of touched on, that sort of slick process is much better than it was. I mean, certainly in the last year, we've obviously had a much more limited team than we would normally have. And actually, without the DHM system in place, I would have struggled to manage all of those inquiries coming in throughout 2020 on my own. So that has immediately made life much easier, because I know that they're just ticking along quite happily. I think that for me, that's the biggest thing. I think your sort of tailored approach, really, getting to know the venues, everything from the colour palettes that you use, the wording that you use based on the style of venue that it is. I think that's the biggest thing. As I said, you don't just go in with the same approach for every venue that you work at. You look at what that venue needs, who the team are, and the whole journey, and understand who the customer is. So I think that for me is the biggest thing. I wouldn't say necessarily surprised. I guess I felt more supported than I thought I would in some ways, because as I said, I'm normally a team of 4, but this year at times it's only been me. So, it's very much felt like your team have been an extension of ours, really, and I could call on them at any point if I needed to, which I wouldn't necessarily say is a surprise, but it's very comforting to know that it's there. I will probably say don't overthink it. We know that digital is the way forward. It's the only way people generally communicate now. If I could count on, I've worked in weddings for 15 years, and 15 years ago, the majority of your inquiries came through on the phone. The phone maybe rings once or twice a week now. Most inquiries come through digitally. So that's what's got to be strong, really. It's so key. And especially as, millennials and Gen Zs come through, that's going to just get, digital marketing is going to become more and more important. So you've just got to be ahead of the game, really, I think. As I said, we're now sort of changing our model. We originally were growing as a business, and now we're actually rethinking where we're positioned, and maybe not growing, but actually you guys are adapting with us with that. And even if it's a slightly different challenge to what we originally had, I think it's still an important part of it. So no, I wouldn't say there's anything. Well, it makes sense to me. Having read the book, it makes complete sense. Having got married a couple of years ago myself, so I've seen it from both sides, which actually is really helpful. But I think it totally makes sense. And I would encourage anybody, whether they're starting out as a new venue or entering into a new market or just trying to build on what they've got, that actually that's a really good place to start, is to understand that method and what's behind DHM first before you delve into this world. Because without that knowledge, I think it just feels a bit disjointed, I imagine. I think the other thing for me is being able to have you guys to bounce ideas off, I suppose. So, if I'm not sure about something, it's great to be able to just pick up the phone to your team and say, what do you think about this? What are your other venues doing? What's the general feeling in the industry? I think you guys have got a really kind of good knowledge of what's going on across venues and hotels and lots of different areas. So that's kind of the only thing I think I'd really add.